Well, good afternoon, everyone. It looks like it's straight up 2 o'clock now, and I would like to welcome you to the Indiana Hort Congress ninth in a series of programs this February and 1st of March. My name is Jeff Burbrink. I'm a county extension educator in Elkhart County, Indiana, up here in Amish country. And today's program is going to be focused around pretty much food safety related topics. Our first speaker is Scott Monroe. Many of you probably have met Scott, but we have about 30 some people in the program here today to listen to an update on current food safety issues and activities around the state of Indiana.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about for the next 20 minutes or so is basically food safety, produce food safety issues and activities. As Jeff said, my name is Scott Monroe. I'm a food safety educator based in Vincennes, Indiana, working with produce food safety with my partner in crime, who's here as always, Amanda Deering, up on campus. So anyway, what we're going to do is just go through a quick run through of some food safety issues. And I think this probably goes without saying. I know I've been involved in produce food safety for about, 11 or 12 years easily now. And I think it goes without saying, but I do want to restate that all growers who introduce produce into the public food supply should be concerned about produce safety. Again, that's kind of a message that we've tried to put, drive home to everyone over the years that we've done this. But it bears mentioning and thinking about again, the idea that as we introduce food into the public food supply, it's a lot different from producing food for our own personal consumption. Simply put, we have to step up and assume that extra level of responsibility to make sure we're not producing in such a way that we're taking on additional risk. Again, a little bit of review, but what we see is that regulation of on-farm food safety has basically originated from several places over the last several years. Local farmers markets might have rules. County health departments may have separate sets of rules. At the state level, we see the Indiana State Department of Health being the regulatory agency in charge of regulating or administrating the produce safety rule, and federally, Food and Drug Administration oversees the produce safety rule. So again, a lot of different groups, a lot of different agencies involved in regulating on-farm food safety. So the question becomes, with all of the issue and all of the attention that this topic has gotten over the last several years, what are the basics and how do we manage this? And we like to think of this as in terms of risk reduction. Basically, prevention or risk of contamination or something getting into your crop at the farm level falls into four broad categories. That would be water, wildlife, waste, and workers. So if we can control or manage these four items, then we're going to go a long way towards reducing the risk of something getting into the system on our farm as we're growing, harvesting, and packing our produce. So again, water is a major vector. It can easily spread contamination. Again, waste, we want to watch what we're using as a soil amendment. Manure can contain pathogens. Not that we don't use it, it's good stuff, but we really need to make sure we're using it in such a way that we can reduce that risk. Again, wildlife will pose a risk to growing crops as far as intrusion. It can spread bacteria through fecal matter, through other forms of contact. And again, workers. Workers can spread contamination. Workers can spread disease, pathogens as they handle fresh produce. So again, these are the four areas that we look at whenever we think about reducing the risk of contamination to our crop by a foodborne pathogen. So in light of these risks and in light of these issues, what is Purdue doing and what are people doing across the state to help growers respond to this? Several years ago, we formed a collaboration that we call Safe Produce Indiana, which is a collaboration between Purdue Extension, the Indiana State Department of Health, and the Indiana State Department of Agriculture. So this is, we like to think of this as your first stopping point for any grower that needs information or assistance in managing or dealing with food safety issues or implementing a food safety program on your farm. We can be found online. We've got an online presence, our website, safeproduceindiana.com, and we're also on Facebook. So again, this we like to think of this group as sort of the first stop for assisting growers with some of these issues. Because we have three agencies working together, we communicate, and our part as Purdue Extension is to provide education for growers to help them to come into compliance with produce safety rule requirements or to institute their own food safety program on farm. The Department of Ag does outreach, and then Department of Health does the regulatory piece. So when everything's working and all the pistons are firing, Department of Health goes out on farms, does inspections, we get feedback, we develop educational resources around that. Department of Ag helps us with the outreach to get that information out. So it's a really good system, and we've gotten some really good success from collaborating like this. Some of the things that we do through this Safe Produce Indiana collaboration, training. We have at least two main programs that we offer. First is the Produce Safety Alliance Grower Training. There's more information available about this on our website. This is an approximately 8-hour full day training, primarily targeted at those folks who are covered or held to the produce safety rule. But we have a lot of folks that are not covered by the produce safety rule that opt to take this course basically for general information and to kind of increase their food safety knowledge. So it really is open to anyone that wants to take it. Right now, our next offering is going to be April 7th, and that's going to be down here at the Purdue Extension Food Safety Training Hub in Vincennes. Those who are interested in taking this course, check with our website, as any new course offerings are posted on the website. We also offer for folks a 2-hour basic food safety introduction, which is more targeted towards market gardeners or groups that are marketing through farmers markets or whatnot. But again, this is a 2-hour, just a down and dirty food safety basics course, just designed for those who might not necessarily have a need to sit through 8 hours of produce food safety training. On-farm readiness reviews are another service that we offer through the Safe Produce Indiana group. On-farm readiness reviews consist of a team of individuals coming out to your farm. We'll ask some questions, we'll do a walk around, and basically give a free assessment of where you are in terms of compliance with the produce safety rule. We like to see folks, we want them to have already had one of our PSA trainings before we do this. This is kind of the second step. But basically the team consists of folks from Purdue Extension, either Amanda or myself, from the Department of Ag and the Department of Health. Depending on where we are in the state, the Department of Health inspector that is assigned to that part of the state will normally accompany us. So again, it's not an inspection, it's an assessment. It's free, it's completely confidential. And it's kind of, it reminds me of kind of like taking an open book test. You have your inspector and everybody there, and they're kind of giving you the answers before the test even. So again, something that we would highly encourage folks to take advantage of. Also, things that we offer: on-farm visits. Anyone that needs us to come and take a look at their operation, we're always willing. I tell people the good days are the days that you call us and get us out of the office and away from the computer. I see Amanda smiling there. Yeah, those are definitely the good days. So again, we love coming out to farms. We love walking farms, looking at farms, doing assessments. For those of you who are looking at maybe doing a third-party audit, whether that's a harmonized GAPS or a Primus GFS or a USDA audit, we do offer mock third-party auditing services. So Amanda and I are always happy to come out and visit your farm, go through your written food safety plan, do a mock audit, and basically try to assess where you are in terms of your, the food safety protocol prior to the auditor coming to do the actual audit. Also, anyone that's doing written food safety plans, we're always happy to help with those. Written food safety plans are a requirement for anyone that's doing a third-party audit. So again, we're always happy to take a look at those, review those, help you get started with those, however we can be of assistance. Okay, so what's going on currently with our program? The other thing that I wanted to mention is that hopefully, this spring, we're going to be offering water treatment trainings. We're still in the process of scheduling, but we're looking at doing full-day training for growers who are using surface water or have questionable water quality with their irrigation water. We're looking at offering a full-day training for growers who want to learn a little bit more about treating that water. Right now, we're looking at classes being offered across the state in late March, in April, where we have a demonstration unit that we're planning to hold of these classes. So because there is an outside component, we would prefer that the weather warm up just a little bit more before we start doing these courses. So, but watch our website, watch our social media for announcements as we get these scheduled. Other food safety issues that we're seeing right now across the state, probably the biggest one right now is that we're seeing proposed changes to Subpart E of the produce safety rule. Subpart E is the water testing and water standards section of the produce safety rule. December 6th of 2021, FDA came out with proposed changes to Subpart E. So we're watching that pretty closely. The thing to remember is that a proposed rule does not automatically replace the current rule. For those farms that are producing or selling more than 500,000 in food per year, they were to be in compliance with the water testing components of the produce safety rule in January of this year. So along with proposing changes to Subpart E, FDA has also announced enforcement discretion for those who are required to be in compliance with the current rule and the current water testing standards. So the proposed rule may be viewed at this address, and I notice we're recording the session, so I'm hoping that this will be available to you all after we're done, so that these websites are here. One thing to remember is that the comment period is open until April 5th of 2022. So if this is something that is of importance, I would highly recommend that growers look through the new proposed rule, and would really encourage them to submit a comment to FDA before April 5th. And the comments are submitted through the regulations.gov website. Let's see, what else have we got? Also, I didn't do a slide, but I am hearing from FDA that as they roll out inspections, this will be the fourth year for inspections in the produce industry per the produce safety rule, that they are seeing issues regarding subpart L of the produce safety rule, which is food contact surfaces. And we're kind of hearing some of that feedback from the Department of Health in Indiana, that food contact surfaces may be one of those areas that they're going to focus on during the inspection process. So again, that's something we're monitoring. We're working with Department of Health to work with growers to make sure that they understand what food contact surfaces are, especially during post-harvest and transport, and to make sure that we're adequately cleaning those and protecting those surfaces. So with that, the other thing that is new in food safety, we have a new position in food science. Terry Gary, who was previously with the Indiana State Department of Ag, has recently joined the Purdue Department of Food Science as a new extension administrator. So what I'm going to do is to stop sharing my screen, and Terry, you can wave to everybody.
Hello.
There she is. And Terry is actually going to pick up where I'm leaving off and talk a little bit about another project that some of us have been working on involving record keeping and digital records. So Terry, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you with an extra 4 minutes.
All right, awesome. Are you seeing my presentation screen or like with the notes?
Yes, we're seeing the notes.
Okay, let me fix that. Okay, that should fix it.
Yep, looks good.
All right, great. So like Scott said, my name is Terry. I'm the new extension administrator within the Department of Food Science at Purdue. But I've been around produce for about 3 years now in produce safety. So I'm glad I get to stay in this space in my new role. So I was asked to talk a little bit about record keeping for produce safety today. And then I'm also going to share a little bit about a new tool that was recently developed to help produce growers with record keeping for the FEMI produce safety rule. So as we go on farms, record keeping is consistently an area where growers have significant room for improvement. On most farms, growers are doing the right thing when it comes to food safety. They've implemented great practices and they're working hard to reduce that risk. They're forgetting that last step of actually writing it down and keeping those records. And that's a critical part for not only the produce safety rule, but just produce safety in general. Record keeping is how we prove that we're doing the right thing on the farm and we're doing the things we say we're going to do to comply with the produce safety rule, but also just reduce risk in the long run. So the key here is building that into your routine and just making it part of your food safety practices and just part of your daily routine on the farm, that record keeping step. So the FEMI produce safety rule requires several different records, specifically for worker training, compost treatment, or treatment of any biological soil amendment of animal origin, agricultural water system inspection, agricultural water testing, agricultural water treatment, and then also cleaning and sanitizing food contact surfaces or those tools and equipment that are used in your produce operation. So lots of different things going on there. And like I said, the key is just building that into your routine. So the produce safety rule also requires that those records be kept for at least 2 years, which can be tricky. Those papers definitely start piling up. So keeping track of everything and having a system is really important. But you have to keep those for 2 years in case there's an outbreak or something that you need to go back and reference those later. And then records may be kept in paper or electronic form. And what the FDA requires here is that those records are accessible. I think you have 24 hours to retrieve those records. So you just have to be able to get to them quickly and easily. So that's one nice thing. There is that flexibility of whatever the best way for you to keep those records, whether that's paper or electronic, there's definitely that wiggle room. So I'm going to stop sharing here. And then I'm going to share a different screen because that leads me to our next thing I want to show, which is this new tool that one of the professors within the Department of Biological Engineering, Agricultural and Biological Engineering, excuse me, that he developed. Hang on just a second, let me get here. There it is. Okay. So Dennis Buckmaster within the Department of ABE developed this nice tool using this system called Airtable. So what this is basically Dennis
Hey,
developed.
Carrie,
Yeah.
we're seeing your emails now.
Oh, sorry. Let me get rid of that.
No, I saw it before and then it went away.
Okay.
There you go. Now it's there.
Okay, there we go. So Dennis developed some different templates specifically for the produce safety rule and for growers to keep these records that are required using the system called Airtable. And Airtable is a cloud-based system, so it allows you to put in your data for your records, and then it stores that for you. And then you can export that to different files and retrieve that when you need to for an inspection or just to reference in the long run. So we'll post these links in the chat box here in a minute, but it'll take you to this landing page, which is a Purdue landing page, but it talks a little bit about Airtable and what that database allows you to do. And if you've never used Airtable, that's okay. I know I had never used it before I was introduced here. Because if you go down, Dennis has developed some tutorial videos that really introduce you to Airtable and show you how to use the different templates that are in there, how to customize those to your farm, how to export the data, and all of those things so you can feel a lot more comfortable. And there are 6 different videos, but they are, I mean, they're short. As you can see, they're all less than 10 minutes long, and they're packed full of information and really easy to follow. So I encourage you to check that out if you are thinking about using Airtable. So if you click on this link here, and I already did, so hopefully you can see this screen. This is what Airtable looks like when you open it up from that link. And as you can see, there are some templates that have already been developed for records for the produce safety rule that you can duplicate and use for your farm. So you can customize it. I think these are, if you just open them, they're in read-only mode, but you can duplicate it and use that for your farm. And all those videos show you exactly how to do that. So if we click on this one, so this is what you would see for your worker training. So everything in Airtable is form-based, which is really easy to go in and just do that, complete that record really easily, and you don't forget anything that way. So it allows you to create this form, and if you open the form to actually do the record, this is what it would look like. So it's just a series of questions that you would complete. Who was the worker? What training topic did you cover, etc. And you go through and you fill out the form. So I encourage anybody that is looking for another option as far as record keeping and organizing those records. Check out Airtable. And if you have any questions about FSMA record keeping in general, reach out to me or Scott or Amanda, and we can answer those questions. If you have questions specifically related to Airtable, we recommend that you reach out to Dennis Buckmaster in the Department of ABE. He's much more familiar with it than the 3 of us are. So thank you.
Amanda, I think it's probably your turn to be speaking.
So thanks for coming today, guys. So I'm Amanda Deering. I'm in the Department of Food Science at Purdue. what Terry talked about, those digital record keeping tools, I think they're really, really cool. And it's kind of hot off the press. So Dennis is we were working with Dennis to try to make those records as the things that would be asked as useful as possible. So check it out and let us know of questions, but totally Dennis is going to be the expert as far as Airtable questions and things like that. But it's a free service, so it's a great thing, I think, in my opinion. So what I was going to do today is just kind of talk about some updates from Purdue Food Science. And then at the end, we're going to have Allie Kingery talk a little bit about a new program or I guess offering that we have in the department. So you'll see when we talk about Purdue Extension, the food safety team, this is just in our department, but of course Scott is here, and you'll see there's several of us who work in the food safety side, but we're all sort of specific, right? So I just put this up there. So if you have questions in any of these other categories, let us know. I do mostly fresh produce, food safety, work a lot with some of the home-based vendors, but really anything food safety I'll touch on. And then Darmendra does a lot on the processing side, so he's a great resource for that. And Haley, retail, Betty, consumer, and Terry obviously is kind of in between all of us. So add Scott to this mix, and this is kind of we're the ones that handle the food safety questions at Purdue. So just giving a little update on some of the research that we've been doing. My graduate student, Hansel Mina, will be talking as well about some of his latest work, but I'm just going to give a brief overview. I'm not going to go into depth in a lot of this, just wanted to kind of say, hey, this is what we got going on at Purdue, and if you have any questions, reach out to me, and I'd be always happy to talk more about the research that we do. But one thing that my lab has done and we're continuing doing is to look at routes of contamination that can result in internalization of human pathogens. And really the question that we're trying to answer is, what is there a route of contamination that occurs, and that if it occurs, does it result in that the fruits that are produced, the fruits or vegetables that are produced, being contaminated as well? And so this is something we've been looking at for years. Hansel's been continuing this work, and I'll talk about that in a second. But what we have at Purdue, we're very fortunate to have, and we're the only one at Purdue, is we have a biosafety level 2 greenhouse. And what that means is that we can actually use real pathogens in this greenhouse space to answer some of these questions. And that's what we do. So we can use real E. coli 157H7. We're not using surrogates or something that some bacteria that sort of act like the pathogens. We're using the real. So a lot of these contamination events we focus on are a leaf, so like a wound to the leaf that could introduce the pathogens. We contaminate the soil, we contaminate the seed. And then we let these plants do their thing, right? They grow, they set fruit, the fruit ripens. And in this case, we were doing tomatoes, where we looked at some of these dwarf varieties. And what we ended up about, when we would sample these, the mature fruit, looking for E. coli 157H7, about 50% of the time, we could get it from plants that were seed contaminated or leaf contaminated. So that means somehow, especially when you think about seed contamination, so all we do is soak that seed in the bacteria, plant it, and that's it. There's no other contamination to it. So somehow, obviously, these bacteria are able to internalize in the plant and move around, likely because they can get into the vascular tissue that's moving that nutrients around. We never saw it in soil contaminated plants. And the bummer part is that if these bacteria are inside, right, if they're internalized in these fruits, then any of these post-harvest sanitizers that we use are not going to be useful, right? Because those sanitizers won't come in contact. So at that point of the game, the only thing we can really do then is cook it, and that would kill the bacteria. So that's why we care about this. And we're continuing some of that work. So what Hansel's been doing is looking at leaf contamination in romaine. And so what it'll do is contaminate one leaf and then sample leaves away from where the leaf that was contaminated, sample away. And he's been able to find it then in other leaves of the romaine plant. So the romaine lettuce plant. So again, that just means that it's able to internalize, it's moving around, likely, I would guess, the vascular tissue. But so right now we're just looking to see how this happens, right? So that's one thing we've been doing. And this was a project, I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but this is a project we did in collaboration with Petrus Langenhoven, where he was looking at some of these melons that had different varying amounts of netting. And he can certainly talk way more about that and how that all works and the physiology. But what we wanted to look at is, do these varying amounts of netting impact how biofilms can form on the outside of these cantaloupe, and how easy it is to get rid of them once you have a post-harvest sanitizer added. All right, so we did these, it was a smooth, the mid-range netting, and then a heavily netted cantaloupe variety. And then we treated them with 3 different sanitizers. So chlorine dioxide, proacetic acid, and chlorine. And to look at, then we added E. coli 15787, Listeria, monocytogenes, and Salmonella. So what we did was take those cantaloupe rinds, added the bacteria, let them form a biofilm, and then we treated them with these post-harvest sanitizers. And I will say, here, I guess I included a micrograph. So this is a scanning electron microscope image from the surface of a cantaloupe. And you can see just how there's all these surfaces that those bacteria can get in, attach, form this biofilm. So even on something that looks smooth, it's not necessarily smooth when you get it down to this level, right? So you think about then if you have something that's heavily netted, then you can imagine how much more opportunities there are for these bacteria to form the biofilms. So we're still analyzing some of this data, and some of it wasn't exactly as we thought. There wasn't a direct correlation between, oh, if it's smooth, then it totally gets rid of the biofilm better. It really wasn't that. But what we were seeing is that there was different combinations of certain sanitizers with certain amounts, variable amounts of netting. And so some of these sanitizers, depending on the netting, how much netting there was, were better at removing the pathogens. So it's not quite the answer we were hoping, but it means there's a lot of things going on here. So it's not just the fact that, okay, a heavy, a surface that has more areas for the bacteria attached automatically means that it's going to be harder to get rid of the biofilm. It doesn't mean that. So as in most things in science, you answer one question and then you have 100 more that you want to ask, right? So this is something, I don't know how much we'll be able to keep working on this, but there's still, I think, many more questions to ask in regards to this work. We also did some work related to popcorn. And so we were approached to try to better understand how well Salmonella is killed when you pop popcorn. Okay, so there was a study done in 2006 that said between 8 and 13% of popcorn kernels that are produced are positive for Salmonella, even if they're produced under, hygienic conditions, normal conditions, I would say. So we were asked to evaluate the efficacy of different popping methods, right? So what if we use microwave? What about conventional on the stove versus using an air popper, like a popcorn machine type thing? And so we wanted to see how well those different methods would be at reducing the presence of E. coli, Listeria, and Salmonella that could be associated with these seeds. And actually, when we did this, all 3 of those methods surpassed the industry processing standard, which means they got over a 5 log reduction. So that's a 99.999% log or reduction of bacteria that was present with the popcorn kernel. So that is excellent news. And that doesn't mean, I was talking about with another group, and it says, oh, so we don't have to be so careful when we're producing popcorn. It's like, no, that let's not go there. Just keep on doing what you're doing and be safe, and everything that this cooking method should get rid of any bacteria that's there. All right. So I just want to talk about some of our extension stuff. Scott touched on some of this already, which is great. So I don't have to go into all this. But I did want to throw out there, we get a lot of questions. So some of you may be considering being a home-based vendor. And so we are getting requests because local health departments will want to know the pH and the water activity. And those two values basically can be used to assess how safe that food product is after you make it. So something that has a lower pH and a lower water activity will be is safe, more safe, safer, more safe compared to something that would have a higher pH and a higher water activity. So if you get into that situation, we can do that for you, and you can mail samples here to the Department of Food Science, and there's the cost to do that, those testings, and you contact Rhonda Taylor. And I can share these slides too, or reach out to me for any questions that you have for product testing. So this is kind of the time of year that people are starting to work on developing what products they're going to sell at the farmers market. So that's why this time of year we get a lot of these requests. So just wanted to put that information out there so you guys have it. So Scott already talked about this, the Produce Safety Alliance training. So this is the curriculum that was developed by Cornell University, and currently this is the only curriculum that FDA recognizes if you are covered by the Produce Safety Rule of FEMI. That may certainly change, I don't know, but we decided collectively as a state, however many years ago, 6 years ago, I guess, that we were going to only offer this curriculum so that if you're covered by the rule, not covered, then this training would work for everybody. So we've been doing that, I guess, for six years or so now, offering this training. So Scott already talked, just check out Safe Produce IN under registration to register for any of those trainings. I'm not going to talk about this. Scott already talked about all the systems that we have for growers. And I'll just emphasize, like he said, don't hesitate to reach out to us. I mean, that's what we're here for. So, let us help if we can. Give us a call, send an email. We're always happy to help if we can. So the other trainings that we have, so I lead the Serve Safe program at Purdue, and these are health and human science, so HHS educators that they offer this training. So these would be anybody, they offer the managers training, so it would be for restaurant managers, and they also offer it for food handlers. We have about 44, I think, extension educators around the state that offer these trainings, and it gives you that in-person option should you choose. There are online options available as well from ServeSafe, but we offer these. There's always, just check on that. I think, do I have it on the next page? I think, yeah. So go under retail food safety, and that's in our food science department. That's what on our webpage under retail food safety. And if you go to training, there's they'll have all the trainings listed that you can sign up for. And so it'll tell you where it is and whatnot, and the educators, so you can reach out to them should you have any questions. The other thing that I assist with, I don't teach this, but I work with the health and human science educators that do offer this, is the Mastering Home Food Preservation course. And there will be one coming up this summer. They're just going to be, it's in June, I believe, sometime. They'll be putting out information on flyers on that shortly. But this course covers everything about food preservation. Okay, so especially, we've seen it, especially since COVID, we've seen a big increase in the demand for this kind of training. So they go over overview of food safety, freezing food, boil water, canning, pressure canning, pickling, dehydration, jams, and jellies. So it's in person that they do. You go in, it's actually here in the food science department, and it's hands-on, and they'll go over all these different techniques with you. They're also offering an online, it's coming soon, we don't have it done yet. A lot of things have been recorded. There'll be an online virtual series that will be available through the Purdue Ed store. So it'll kind of be learn at your own pace kind of thing. That we will have that coming out shortly. All right, so that's all I have. I guess we got about 3 minutes extra, so I will stop sharing. And there's my contact. I'm happy to answer any questions, or Jeff, would you like Allie to go, and then we'll take questions at the end?
Well, I noticed that Terry has been putting a lot of links in the chat, and if you're interested in any of those subjects, I would encourage our 50-some viewers to copy those links over so that you can look at those at a later time. That'd be great. So if you do want to introduce our next speaker, that would be good, and then we'll take questions after that.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jeff. So I would like to introduce Allie Kingery. So Purdue, we've been fortunate enough in the food science department. I'm just going to do a brief intro, just because I'm proud of it, Allie. We're fortunate to have this new Food Entrepreneurship Manufacturing Institute. And what it is, and Allie's going to go into detail, but basically it's giving us an opportunity to work with food entrepreneurs to help them develop their products. And so there's several of us involved, right? So I help on the microbiology side. But there's several of us involved, and Allie will get into that. But this is brand new. So we started, I think Allie's date was in November 1. So we haven't had this around very long. So we wanted to introduce this and put this out as a resource should any of our fruit and vegetable growers want to get into the value added business. So you want to turn your product, the things you grow, into different products. So with that, I will turn it over to Allie.
Well, thanks, Amanda. I appreciate the introduction, and I appreciate the invitation to steal a little bit of your time. It's been really a pleasure being part of this FEMI group, and I'll explain the initiative a little bit. Let's get to the start. And stop. Let's see. Terry, how did you get out of presentation mode without the notes?
Slideshow. Yep, and then up at the top, display settings, and then just swap it, and that should do
Terry.
it.
Wonderful. How do we look? Does that look like the title?
Yep, looks great.
Looks good.
Thanks, Terry. You were a good hire just a few weeks ago. I appreciate you having you around. Well, I'm Allie Kingery. I am the managing director of FEMI, so Food Entrepreneurship and Manufacturing Institute. I came on board in this role in November, as Amanda stated, but I've been in the department for almost 6 years in varying capacity. I am a food science super fan and graduated from the program many years ago, worked in the dining space, the education space, the student academic advising space, and really it picked up a lot of enthusiasm and interest in connecting in these kinds of conversations. So we're really fortunate to have the support of the college for getting this off of the ground. So our FEMI team has been working to understand how we can best serve the state and the stakeholders within it. We also are open to work far beyond the state of Indiana, but I understand the value of being able to best support the stakeholders within. First thing to note on the title slide, our email, femi@purdue.edu, is a great way to get in touch, ask questions. My role is to be a primary point person and then ultimately a project manager as we connect you with resources that we have in the department, the college, and sometimes even the university, depending on the scope of the project. But we're located within the food science department primarily, and we are often doing projects within our Skidmore Product Development Lab commercial kitchen, as well as the pilot plant. So we understood a need for supporting food entrepreneurs, and I will say in my previous role in the department, I would overhear a lot of requests that we as a department tried our best to facilitate, but there wasn't the infrastructure to answer every question or take on every project. And I think the support of the college to put FEMI forward gives us a much better opportunity to facilitate growth in these particular areas. And in a few slides, I'll explain it's not really a one size fits all. When we're working with medium and large food companies, we recognize that those needs may be very different than an entrepreneur or even just somebody with a question on how to interpret policy. But there is endless opportunity within the state, and Amanda has helped me understand some of the different avenues that we can go down. Okay, so we, as I said, really oversee Skidmore Product Development Lab, and then I work very closely with Kelsey Boudreau, the pilot plant manager. Let's see how good I am at sharing within the share. Amanda, do we see the pilot plant?
I don't.
All right, I can switch. It's worth it. Now.
Yes.
Okay, so this is our pilot plant facility that we have within Nelson Hall. Skidmore is adjoining. So Skidmore is our commercial kitchen that has been in use for a few years in its current status. Several years ago, it was simply an overflow debriefing space. Some of you may have been through in trainings many years ago, but it works as a small scale benchtop starting point where we can scale up into the pilot plant if the project warrants that expansion. We have our quality control space adjoining. So if we need to do pH and water activity, among other quality and safety controls, we're able to do that. We also have a space in this pilot plant, a sectioned off room that is undergoing improvements for eventual FDA certification for those of us that need that type of environment for our production. We have space in this facility that has been used for many years with the wine grape team. So some of you may be familiar with that. So a lot happens in this space, including research and education to our own students, undergrads and grad students. But this is a wonderful training grounds and even a small scale production operation. All right, let's get back to my PowerPoint. How'd I do? Back?
Yep,
All
looks
right.
good.
Wonderful. Okay, so Skidmore Commercial Kitchen, our space that adjoins the pilot plant, may be very relevant to some of the people in your counties that might need access to a space that is inspected and certified for human consumption. So we do operate under those expectations and standards, but the capabilities of Skidmore are more than just stocking for your food truck, although that's technically viable as well. It's a great place where we can start the conversation and you can produce your salsa the way that your grandmother has always made it, and we can help you scale. We can do many things from the value added component in Skidmore, and then we may scale into the pilot plant as well. You may recognize many of the extension workshops that occur between Skidmore and the pilot plant. Right. Many of these units are located within the pilot plant. So some of them may be very beneficial for value adding between our retort and our aseptic filler. Some of them may be very, very technically complex and not necessary for your grandmother's salsa, and that's okay. But we can help you identify the equipment that would be beneficial in-house And as you reach commercialization and you're ready to have your product manufactured on a regular basis, we can help you make suggestions on what to look for, who to work with, and what to expect. So really our goal from the college is to help growth within the region and to incorporate students into that conversation. So far we've hired 16 undergrad students that help with the scope of these projects that come through. So sometimes projects have a very specific issue where a sauce is separating and there's just not enough resources within the small business to troubleshoot. So our students, under guidance of other faculty and staff, troubleshoot. Some projects include more ideation. We have excess waste production, something that would end up in hog feed or the waste stream in general. And we know that there's an opportunity for upcycling, but we don't necessarily know what or how to get there. Our students are able to come up with multiple ideas and even generate prototypes. What is a wonderful opportunity in FEMI is our opportunity for you to connect food science all the way through to our Ag Econ group to understand business needs and development for your product or business. So we have a team on the Ag Econ end of the conversation or end of the spectrum when the project warrants that. So having that full scope of an idea to a formulation to processing and safety and commercialization all the way through to business planning and execution is something that can be very valuable for many people. Okay, so we've already understood in the few months that we've been receiving requests that it's not a one size fits all, but our goal is to help you expand in a safe, reasonable way that is efficient and accessible. So we're here to help, which is just one of the best roles of my job, is to make it easier on you by carrying some of that weight of troubleshooting, all kinds of different troubleshooting or creative thinking. We can call it that too. There are opportunities for us to elevate the exposure to workshops that Amanda and Scott have mentioned. I anticipate working very closely with Amanda and Scott and Terry to just link this all together to be able to give the user the best experience and most fulfilling experience possible. Okay, so I wanted to share our 4 different targets. Really captures the gamut. We have entrepreneurs and even farmers that have product with the opportunity of value adding, entrepreneurs with an idea, maybe formulas developed already, maybe not, as well as small businesses. So I've been working very closely with MEP, which is a Purdue state-funded entity. I say MEP about 20 times a day and I always have to make sure I'm saying it right. So Manufacturing Extension Partnership is a group that has a great pulse on what's happening within the state and have a charge of being able to support manufacturing, not just food manufacturing, but manufacturing across the state. And they are connectors as well. So they bring us business and we can circle back through them if we need to think about co-manufacturers or connecting with other people within the state. So they're a great group. And then large corporations already know we exist from frequently and have existing relationships, but FEMI has become more of a service provider, a project management focal point to be able to make that project as efficient and effective across the board. We also have the capabilities of going beyond the department and understanding what we can do to help from the college and from the university capacity. Okay, so within the department, a lot of these processes were existing, but FEMI can help bring these all together so that the entrepreneur, the small business, the farmer doesn't have to decipher what all of these things mean on your own. I can be that person. FEMI is that group to help connect these dots so that you don't have to depend on finding the right phone number or the right email address for exactly the right person. You can task us for that. But we've discussed the spectrum of workshops and understanding food safety, food quality, sensory, and then marketing, product feasibility on the ag econ end. Right, and that was my last slide. So I appreciate having the opportunity to discuss FEMI's potential, and I hope to hear from many of you and many people that you're connected with on how we can help facilitate improvement for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everything that you shared with us there. It doesn't seem that long ago that the food science program was just getting kicked off there at Purdue. And look at all the things that you're already doing. And it's very much needed, of course, across the course of the US. So I really appreciate all that. So I do not currently see any questions in the chat right now for our speakers. So I guess I will maybe move forward with introducing Hansel. My understanding is Hansel is a grad student for Amanda. So maybe Amanda would be a better introductory person than myself for this particular talk. But
Sure.
Okay, go right ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, Hansel's my PhD student in my lab. He's from Columbia originally, and he did, when he was a undergrad student, he did an internship in my lab. And then a few years later, he worked in industry some, doing research at a research station, and then for a couple years, and then he ended up coming in my lab as a PhD student. So he does a lot of work in food safety related questions, a lot with fresh produce, a lot with sanitizers, testing sanitizers for companies and things like that. So he's going to share just a bit about his research that he has been doing. So take it away.
All right, good afternoon. So yeah, this is me, Hansel Mina. So for today's presentation, I'm going to talk about two posters or two studies that we had worked in the lab. The first one is going to be about the efficacy of sanitizers applied to stainless steel coupons to remove bacterial biofilms from pathogenic bacteria. The second one is going to be on removing biofilm from the surface of cantaloupes that have different nettings of different surfaces. So this was a recording. I will be here in case that you have any questions in any of the posters.
Welcome to my presentation, Efficacy of Commercially Available Sanitizers to Remove Biofilm Formed by Salmonella, Typhimurium, E. coli 0157H7, and Listeria monocytogenes on stainless steel coupons. My name is Hansel Mina, and this work was supervised by Dr. Amanda Dillon in the Food Science Department at Purdue University. First of all, it is important to mention that food industry had been challenged for the recurrence of contaminating agents during the manufacturing process. One of the main concerns are biofilm formation on food contact and non-food contact surfaces that can cause contamination of raw material and final products. Biofilm formation from human pathogens such as E. coli, Listeria, and Salmonella in the food industry can be controlled by implementing good manufacturing practices, following SOPs, and implementation of a frequent and strong sanitation of equipment and the facility in general. There are different types of sanitizers that are commercially available to apply in the food industry. This is the reason why our objectives are to determine the concentration of human pathogenic bacteria biofilm formed on stainless steel coupons, and then evaluate the efficacy of the different commercial sanitizers on disrupting biofilms formed by Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria monocytogenes formed on stainless steel coupons. And finally, visualize the attached bacteria on the stainless steel coupons using cryoscanning electron microscopy. The type of sanitizer tested on this study were an enzymatic chlorinated neutral detergent, the product 1, a peracetic acid-based sanitizer, product 2, a chlorinated alkaline detergent, product 3, and finally an alkaline peroxide-based disinfectant, product 4. The first result was that the concentration of bacteria recovered from the biofilms is lower than the ones in planktonic form. This means mixed culture and the initial concentration of the bacteria. The biofilm was formed by inoculating the coupons with the combined mixed culture. Enumeration of bacterial concentrations on the formed biofilms were around 7 log CFU for Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria. The performance of the different sanitizers is summarized in the figure 2, 3, and 4. All the disinfectants were effective at inactivating Salmonella, Typhimurium, and E. coli 0157H7, and similar results were obtained when sanitizers were applied to inactivate Listeria monocytogenes from the stainless steel coupons. For instance, production of Listeria monocytogenes was observed when sanitizers were applied after 5 minutes. In effect, product 2, the parasitic acid-based sanitizer, promoted a greater log CFU reduction of Listeria compared to the other sanitizers when applied for 5 minutes. However, when the product 1, the enzymatic chlorinated detergent, was applied to remove Listeria biofilm, it achieved approximately 3 and 7 log CFU reduction after 15 and 40 minutes respectively. The obtained results shown that the implementation of sanitizers combined with time and method of application for treatment of stainless steel coupons were effective on inactivating cells and disrupting the biofilm. Cryoscan images shown a thick formation of biofilm and then the coupons after the application of the different sanitizers, product 1, 2, 3, and 4. The observed structures present on the coupon surface after the application of the sanitizers are attributed to the presence of biofilm debris following disruption during the treatment. The debris is likely composed of exopolysaccharide substances which form the biofilm matrix and function as a protecting barrier against the sanitizers, disinfectant, and antibiotic. Our main conclusion is that it is crucial to implement cleaning and sanitation to prevent contamination of food products. Also, this study confirmed that the efficacy of the sanitizers can differ to remove different types of bacterial biofilms. In effect, application time and the selection of the sanitizers are important to the disruption of the complex structures formed on the surface of the stainless steel and the food contact surfaces. Thank you very much for your attention.
For the second study, I just want to mention that this was the funding came from the Indiana State, especially from the crop block grant.
Welcome to my presentation, Efficacy of Post-Harvest Sanitizers to Remove Human Pathogenic Bacteria from Melon Rinds with Varying Amounts of Netting. This work was possible through a collaboration between the Horticulture Department and Food Science Department at Purdue University. The principal investigators were Dr. Petgut Langenhoven and Dr. Amanda Deering. To provide an answer on the importance of this type of research, we must provide some background information. Melons are a commodity that are widely consumed around the world. However, it has been associated with multiple outbreaks of salmonellosis and listeriosis in the past decades. Therefore, the importance of determining sanitizing strategies that allow us to control and reduce biofilm formation from human pathogenic bacteria on the surface of the melons. In this study, we used 3 varieties of melons: snow leopard, Napoli, and beetle gold. Each of them with different texture and netting on the rinds. We characterize them as smooth, medium, and heavy netted respectively. Our first result was that biofilm formed from Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria obtain the same concentration even if they are formed in smooth, medium, and heavy netted melons. Our novel analysis shown that there is not significant difference among the biofilm formed from the different bacteria on the surface of the different varieties of melons, regardless of their texture and netting. This is an important result since this points to the versatility of human pathogenic bacteria to attach to different types of surface. Images obtained using an electronic microscope allow us to find that the structure of the netting allows the bacteria to form heavy biofilms on those cracks and to be protected at the moment of applying the sanitizers. As we can observe, these are the smooth variety, medium rinds, and heavy netted. And in the cracks is where we found most of the bacteria concentrated. Also, we found that after the application of sanitizers such as peracetic acid, chlorine, and chlorine dioxide, peracetic acid and chlorine have greater efficacy on removing bacteria from the surface of the melon, as compared with the effect of the chlorine dioxide. An important finding was that an increase in the efficacy of the sanitizers occurred when applied to melons with less amount of netting, such as snow leopard, as compared with the heavy netted. And all of this occur at the moment of applying the sanitizers to remove biofilm formed from Salmonella, Listeria, and E. coli. One of the most important conclusions is we must ensure fresh produce safety. In the case of the melons, contamination from the rind surface can end on the flesh or the edible part of the melons at the moment of cutting them. So that's the reason why it's important to adopt techniques that allow us to remove biofilm formation from human pathogenic bacteria. Thank you very much for your attention.
This presentation will be co-presented by my graduate student, Juan Arquila. So some of the background information I would like to share. So I'm sure early on, Dr. Deering and Scott Monroe may already mentioned, even not in today's presentation, many times, we want to talk about and communicate with small and very small farms like you. So we have these like farm exemptions. So farms that are that have an average annual value of produce sold during the previous 3-year period of 25,000 or less are not covered by the regulation. And there are more to that when it comes to qualified exemption. Next slide. For example, who you sell to. If you sell to the end user that are qualified, you can be a qualified exemption. Next one. And also, depending on what commodity you are growing. Next slide. So some of the commodities that are rarely consumed raw. So right now, FDA is also conducting this, like they conducted surveys on understanding like what are the produce consumed raw and what are the produce should be considered ready to eat. So right now, in the regulation, it says those are the commodities are considered rarely consumed raw. So if you are growing those, you can potentially you could potentially qualified as one of the exemption for produce safety rules. However, it's not just about regulation. When it comes to food safety, you may be exempt from the regulation, but it doesn't mean when something happens, it would not be related to you. It wouldn't harm your business. Next slide, please. So we are currently collaborating with some colleagues. So we have Dr. Landerhoven here, and we are currently also collaborating with some other colleagues, Dr. Marshall, Shove, and Witt. So we want to understand how we can better engage our farmers when it comes to soil to market. And our part is trying to understand what are consumers' perception and whether consumers' perception they understand the food safety behind the scene. So I want to invite Juan to continue this presentation with his recent survey, understanding what consumers think about produce safety.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Feng. So I will continue with this study. Let me go to the next slide. So the main goal of this survey was to understand consumers' expectation on produce safety and also their perception of produce sold by small and medium-sized farms. But the first thing is, how did we develop this survey? So we use an online platform, Qualtrics, and this survey was distributed between October and November 2021. And our participants, we only included those that were primary meal preparers and had purchased fresh bell peppers, spinach, or kale in the past month. We also pilot test this survey for face validity and readability among 50 consumers. And then we use quota control for the social demographic characteristics to be representative for the US. So for the results section, I will give you some generalities from the participants, the produce safety expectations and responsibility in outbreaks, the perception of produce sold by small and medium-sized farms, and the perception of organic produce. In this survey, we had a total of 960 participants. 86% of them buy fresh bell peppers, 65% buy fresh spinach, and 36% buy fresh kale. We also asked them where they purchase their produce. And as you can see in this bar graph, they mainly purchase their produce at local supermarkets or grocery stores, but almost half of them also go to farmers market, followed by specialized markets. But now let's talk a little bit more about produce safety. So in this survey, we asked them if food safety or produce safety was a minimum quality standard for the produce they buy. And surprisingly, 85% of the consumers consider food safety a minimum quality standard. But what do they think when a produce outbreak happens? So we presented a headline. So this headline is a hypothetical scenario. And the headline said, multi-state outbreak of Shiga toxin producing E. coli O15787 infections linked to organic spinach and spring mixed blend. So who is responsible for this outbreak happening? Almost half of them think that the farmer has a big responsibility on this outbreak happening, followed by the produce packing facility and the produce transportation. So this means that they will blame the farmer as the first actor of the supply chain for this outbreak happening, and if something went wrong. What I presented previously was just a general view about produce safety, and now we are going to go more in depth into small and medium-sized farms. So we asked them about what is the definition of small and medium-sized farms. So the top two definitions that they reported were that those are farms that have an average annual value of produce sold of 30,000 or less, and also farms that are family owned. So as you can see here, the two definitions, one is based on the annual value of produce, and the second is related to family owned, two different perceptions. But what about the produce sold by small and medium-sized farms compared to larger farms? So the first three things that come to their mind is that the produce is fresher, higher quality, and helps sustain local farms. So they do have a really good perception of the produce sold by small and medium-sized farms. But what about the safety part? So only for 37% of consumers, those produce are safer to eat. Another finding was that consumers don't really know how their fruits and vegetables are being produced. We first asked them if small and medium-sized farms needed to follow the same food safety rules as larger farms, and majority of consumers said yes, they should. But then they read the definition of the produce safety rule, and we gave them the exemption to the produce safety rule, and we asked them again if they agree that small-sized farms should be exempt. Surprisingly, more than half of the consumers did not agree with exemption. And the two reasons were that first, they were all the produce should be safe for consumption, and second, that all farms should be regulated the same way. So those were just the thoughts of our consumers. Then we wanted to get more insights about produce safety and consumers' perceptions. And now the question is, would consumers pay more for safe produce? So to answer these questions, we developed some hypothetical scenarios. But first, we presented to them a food safety label, asking them if they would like to like the produce to have the label if it was produced using food safety, by the food safety regulation. So as you can see here, this label is the actual label we presented to consumers. And if the produce purchased was grown in accordance with food safety regulations, 80% of consumers would like to see that on a label. Again, this is just an hypothetical scenario. Then we also developed a free bell pepper pack, and we add a starting price of $3.37 for that free bell pepper pack. Following that, we presented to them two different scenarios, both produced from small farmers. However, the inspection status and the food safety label were the two variables. So for the first scenario, we have a small producer, less than 30,000 in annual sales, an inspection status of unknown inspection, and food safety label, no food safety label. And we asked them if they are willing to pay more for this specific product. And 47% of them said they will not pay any more, okay? The second scenario was related to small producer, but this time the inspection status was subjected to FDA inspection and food safety label. Yes, they had a food safety label. So for this scenario, 28% will not pay any more. If we compare those two percentages, we can see that for the second scenario, there will be more people willing to pay more for that specific product. And finally, I just wanted to share you about the perception of organic produce. From the overall sample, only 612 buy organic produce. And the majority of them agree or strongly agree that organic produce is safer to eat. So that's consumers' perception. So I presented different findings from this survey, but I want to share with you some take-home messages just for you to reflect and think about. The first one is that consumers have high expectations from produce sold by small and medium-sized farms. The second one is that food safety is considered as a minimum quality standard. The third is that when an outbreak is linked to fresh produce, consumers will blame the farmer as the principal responsible. And finally, consumers that purchase organic produce consider them safer to eat. So these are key findings that might be useful for you to reflect and think about what are you doing right now with your food safety practices. Okay, so I want to thank you for listening to these results.